Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, it's pretty laser focused.
Yeah.
We are plunging right into the, well, let's just say complicated, often hilarious, and sometimes controversial world of Ari Shaffir, comedian, writer, and really a digital pioneer. We've got a big stack of source material here.
Right.
Covering his whole trajectory. We're going to distill the key facts, biography, his stage work, how he uses podcasting.
Trying to get to the core of the material that really defined him, his public image.
Exactly, what made him him.
And setting that context is, I think, absolutely the bedrock for this deep dive. Because, when you look at modern stand-up, Shaffir represents this really distinct path. It's becoming more common, actually.
Okay.
One that relies, less on the traditional structures, late-night shows, network gatekeepers, that kind of thing.
Right, the old way.
Totally. And it's almost entirely about cultivating your own digital space, your own multi-platform ecosystem.
So our focus today is figuring out how those pieces fit together, the building blocks.
Yeah, exactly. How did these seemingly contradictory things, his intense personal background and then this long, kind of painful grind on stage, how did they let him create and, importantly, control his own content?
Okay, let's just dive right in and give you, the listener, a few surprising nuggets right at the start.
Good idea. Welcome in.
Because this journey, it is anything but conventional. Seriously.
Far from it.
The story involves this huge transition, right, from a really specific, observant, Orthodox Jewish upbringing.
Which is critical context. We absolutely need to unpack that.
Definitely. And then somehow, that same path includes a stint as an NCAA athlete.
And get this.
What?
He reportedly claims he was the lowest-ranked NCAA athlete, in the whole country.
Lowest-ranked? That's a bold claim.
Isn't it? And then after all that, there's this long, brutally tough apprenticeship he served at the legendary Comedy Store in L.A.
Wow. Okay, that combination. Religious rigor, academic study, athletic failure.
Huh. Alleged failure. Lowest ranked anyway.
Right. Lowest ranked. And then just pure artistic tenacity. It creates this, fascinating profile.
Totally. Those foundational contradictions, you can see how they fuel his unique perspective. Often pretty aggressive, right?
So sure.
And to really understand that, we got to start at the beginning.
Okay, Section 1, the foundations. Let's dig in. Ari David Shaffir, born in New York City, 1974. Sources note his family was Jewish, Romanian descent. That's sort of the background detail.
That's the stage.
But the defining element, really cited everywhere, is the family history. His father was a Holocaust survivor.
Right. And that immediately sets this incredibly weighty context in specific.
It just creates this sense of, gravitas in history that you feel permeates his identity later on.
It has to. But what's really formative here, I think, is the evolution of his religious experience.
Okay.
The family initially followed conservative Jewish practices, which is, generally more modernized and maybe less demanding than orthodoxy. But then, when Ari was 9, they moved to Maryland. And at that point, his parents adopted Orthodox Jewish beliefs.
Whoa, okay. That's a massive shift. For a 9-year-old especially.
It's huge. Fundamental. We're not talking about, changing synagogues. This is adopting a highly structured, strict, all-encompassing way of life, right? During those really critical developmental years.
That's got to leave a mark.
Exactly. This foundational pivot, right? Moving from relatively accommodating conservative practice to the, intense demands of orthodoxy. It means he was steeped in deep structure dogma.
Only to later become someone who questions absolutely everything.
Precisely. It almost inherently installs this perspective of critically analyzing rigid systems, which is, pretty much the mission statement of his later comedy, and definitely his podcast, Skeptic Tank.
So he didn't just grow up in one environment. He experienced this deep cultural, spiritual, rerouting.
Yeah, a complete shift.
And it's interesting how that then kind of informs his academic journey, too. He went to high school in Rockville, Maryland. But the religious pursuit didn't stop. He went deeper. Spent 2 years at a yeshiva in Jerusalem studying sacred texts.
Which is an intensely rigorous academic environment. Yeshivas are all about deep text study, analysis, commentary, philosophical debate. It's serious stuff.
So imagine taking that super structured, ancient method of deep textual analysis.
Right, that way of thinking.
And then returning to the U.S., transferring to the University of Maryland, College Park, and pursuing, standard modern academics.
It's quite a contrast.
He eventually graduated in 1999, degree in English literature. So you've got this background. intense religious study, discipline, analysis, interpretation.
Followed by literature. Both fields all about narrative, context, the power of language.
It's like perfect training for crafting stories, right? Even if the stories end up being told on a comedy stage.
It absolutely trains the brain for complexity. And here's that weird bit of trivia again that just makes his path so odd.
The Arlington Cemetery thing?
Yeah, when he was just 16, he worked at Arlington National Cemetery.
Wow. That's a very somber place.
Yeah.
Historical. Structural.
To a teenager, right?
Yeah.
Especially one who'd just been deep in religious structure, to then be in a place dedicated to national memory mortality.
Gives you a unique perspective, I imagine.
Has to. A perspective most comedians probably don't have. But the real curveball, especially given what he does now, is the NCAA connection. We got to talk more about that.
Okay, lay it out. His collegiate athletic career.
So sources confirm Shaffir played on the University of Maryland's NCAA golf team, 1995.
Golf, okay. Precision, focus, internal discipline.
Right, and it puts him inside that structure of serious college athletics, commitment, practice, the whole deal.
What the anecdote everyone remembers is his own claim about his rank.
Exactly, that's the defining part. His assertion that he was at that time the lowest ranked NCAA athlete.
Which, I mean, whether it's literally true or not.
Doesn't almost matter, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he champions that detail tells you so much about the narrative he embraces.
Which is what? Ambition meets reality.
Yeah, and like the willingness to just keep grinding even if you are objectively dead last on the scoreboard.
That low ranking thing, it almost sounds like a perfect comedy origin story. Like intentional branding.
It does, doesn't it?
It takes incredible persistence to keep showing up knowing you're the worst player. Which sounds exactly like, well, the first few years of trying to make it in stand-up.
It's a flawless psychological segue, isn't it? If college sports was about persistence at the bottom.
Then comedy was about the relentless, multi-year hustle just to earn the right to maybe move up one tiny step.
Exactly. The grind is legendary, especially in LA. And the sources tell us his very first and only stage time before moving to LA was in his early 20s, an open mic at a sports comedy place in Northern Virginia.
Wow, one night.
Yeah.
Probably forgettable.
Highly specific, likely forgettable venue, yeah. And that's important because it means he didn't, like, hang around his hometown scene trying to figure it out.
Right.
After graduating in '99, he made the big move. Straight to Los Angeles. Explicit goal, improved his chances as a stand-up.
He knew he had to be where the action was. The epicenter.
The major leagues. And the epicenter back then, I mean, arguably still is, but especially then, was the Comedy Store.
Right. The legendary club.
But getting in there wasn't some big stage debut. The sources really paint this picture of starting at the absolute bottom. He answered phones there.
Entering phones at the Comedy Store, not exactly glamorous.
Not a shortcut. It was pure immersion. He wasn't performing. He was taking reservations. Then he worked his way up. Cover booth, taking cash, managing the list, then working the door.
These are like the classic unglamorous essential jobs that keep a club running.
Totally. But they put you inside, you breathe the air, you watch the masters work every single night, you see how it all operates.
Okay, but this is crucial for understanding that painful grind idea. What does working the door actually teach you that doing open mics wouldn't?
Oh, loads. It teaches context, control, crowd psychology, stuff no comedy class can touch.
How so?
You're not performing, you're observing. Managing the flow. You see how crowds arrive, why they laugh, when they bail, what mood they're in. It's like this immersive education in audience mechanics, the business side.
Gotcha.
And here's the stat that just captures the brutality of it all. It took 4.5 years before the owner, the legend Mitzi Shore, finally made him a paid regular.
4.5 years. That is an eternity in show business time.
He really is.
4.5 years of working those club jobs, probably doing unpaid spots whenever he could, just to earn the right to be on the schedule and get, what, like $50 for a set?
Something like that, yeah. Maybe less back then. It just speaks volumes about the persistence needed for even the smallest bit of recognition.
It proves that discipline, right? The yeshiva, the golf course. That long, sustained effort, even without immediate reward, it was perfectly transferable to comedy.
Absolutely. So moving from that intense prep period, you see his influences start to solidify. He mentions watching showcase comedy shows on TV, comedians on Carson.
The classics. Tight jokes, mass appeal lineage.
Right. But his taste clearly evolved. He cites Bill Burr as his favorite living comedian.
Okay, that tells you a lot right there.
Right.
Burr's style. Unfiltered, aggressive, opinionated, challenges assumptions.
Exactly, not just observational stuff. And that aggressive style definitely informed his own early breakthrough.
Which wasn't on TV initially, right?
Whoop. Unlike a lot of his peers waiting for that sitcom or late-night spot, Shaffir's wider recognition really started online in the viral digital space.
The Amazing Racist.
The Amazing Racist. Classic early viral hit. It was him in like heavy prosthetics and makeup.
Yeah, I remember that.
Approaching strangers, trying to provoke reactions based on stereotypes, racial, cultural.
Super controversial.
Totally. But it was his first big demo of using that aggressive premise work combined with self-produced video to just bypass the gatekeepers entirely.
And it worked. It got attention.
Massive accelerant. From there, the road visibility really picked up. And critically, it linked him to that whole burgeoning comedy ecosystem built around Joe Rogan.
Right. The Rogan connection is huge.
He became an opening act for Rogan in the late 2000s, and that meant touring with this, crucial group of comics who basically defined the next wave of podcast-driven stand-up.
Who was in that group again?
Joey Diaz, Duncan Trussell, Tom Segura, Brian Redband, Eddie Bravo.
Wow. That's like the Mount Rushmore of early comedy podcasting almost.
Pretty much. That touring group is the foundational DNA of that whole scene. Getting into that circle just accelerated everything for him, gave him a network, a built-in audience for later digital stuff.
You also got some traditional validation though, right? Montreal?
Yeah, appeared at the Montreal Comedy Festival in 2009, part of the Nasty Show, which kind of confirmed, okay, this guy can handle dark, explicit material even in a more mainstream festival setting.
And all this success meant moving around.
Yeah, needed geographic flexibility, kept a strong LA presence, but went bi-coastal in 2012, LA and NYC, then moved full-time to New York in 2015.
So established player on both coasts, diversifying his audience, his opportunities.
Right. But Shaffir wasn't just going to be a road dog or an opener forever. Section 3 is where he really shifts. From performer to, actual content creator, executive producer.
And the big one here is this is not happening.
That show was a massive pivot because it proved the power of a simple, universal format. He created it, produced it, hosted it, started as a monthly live show in 2010 with Eric Abrams.
And the concept was just brilliant in its simplicity.
Totally. Stand-ups telling true stories, often totally wild, unbelievable, hilarious, sometimes shocking stories, all centered around a theme each show.
It tapped into that raw personal narrative thing, let comics be storytellers, not just joke machines.
Exactly. And that live show caught on, became a fixture at big comedy festivals. Then, by 2013, it debuted as a web series.
And then The Big Leap.
The Big Leap. Premiered on Comedy Central January 2015. That solidified him. Major network creator, host. Big deal.
Okay, but this leads to that tension, right? Creative freedom versus network constraints.
Always the tension. And Shaffir made this key career move in 2017. He left the show, voluntarily walked away as producer and host.
Wait, hang on. He left his own hit show on Comedy Central. That seems like a huge gamble, professionally, financially. What did the sources say about that risk?
It was definitely a calculated risk, but it reflects that growing power shift towards streaming platforms. And the core reason he left, it speaks directly to platform loyalty and content ownership.
Okay.
He sold his third special, Double Negative, to Netflix, instead of keeping it in-house at Comedy Central.
So that was the breaking point.
Seems like it. He basically prioritized the global reach and presumably the creative freedom Netflix offered for his stand-up.
Over his executive role on the successful format show, the traditional network.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He chose to protect his own material, his special, rather than his showrunner gig. Performer's freedom over executive security.
Makes sense for him, actually.
Totally fits his trajectory. And after he left, Roy Wood Jr., fantastic comic, stepped in as host, which kind of proved the format itself was strong. It could survive its creator leaving.
The show lived on.
Yeah.
Okay, but before you got to that point, that platform power, we should mention the side hustle. The thing most comics have to do to survive the grind. Commercial work.
Oh, yeah, the sources definitely highlight that. He spent several years making apparently pretty good money as a commercial actor.
Paying the bills while funding the dream.
Absolutely. And these were big, visible ads. Coke Zero, Subway, Domino's, Bud Light. Huge brands.
Which requires a totally different skill set, right?
Yeah.
Like a sanitized, marketable persona.
Yeah.
Nothing like his stand-up.
Complete opposite.
Was that ever a distraction? Like, did he risk becoming the Subway guy instead of Ari Shaffir, the comedian?
Well, it certainly provided opportunities. He even did a small part in a feature film, Keeping Up with the Joneses, in 2016.
Right.
But by 2017, he was really clear about his priorities. He stated pretty explicitly he had no interest in pursuing acting work if it took him away from stand-up.
So stand-up was always the core mission.
Always. The acting, the commercials, that was a means to an end. Pragmatic way to survive financially while building the comedy career he actually wanted. The destination was always the stage, amplified by his own platforms.
Which brings us perfectly to the absolute engine of his modern career, the podcast ecosystem.
This is where he truly cemented his relevance, his creative freedom, and crucially, his ability to build long-form context around his comedy.
And you can't talk about his podcasting without starting with the Joe Rogan nexus. That connection isn't just a footnote, it's like foundational.
Totally foundational. Shaffir appeared on the third ever episode of The Joe Rogan Experience back in 2010.
Wow, episode 3, that's ground floor.
Absolute inception of what became, the biggest podcast on earth. And by showing up consistently, he's been on, 59 times since?
Something like that, yeah.
He benefited massively from that cross-pollination, built an audience of people already into long-form, rambling, boundary-pushing chats.
And that collaboration became even more formal recently, right?
Yeah, in 2021, he joined Rogan, Mark Norman, and Shane Gillis as a regular guest on the Protect Our Parks episodes.
So now he's part of this recurring comedy roundtable within the massive JRE structure. Constant fresh exposure to millions.
Huge platform boost. But crucially, he also built his own long-form thing in parallel. And this show, Skeptic Tank, really speaks volumes about his intellectual curiosity.
He hosted that solo from 2011 to 2023. That's a 12-year run, which is ages in podcast years.
Phenomenal run, especially in that rapidly changing digital landscape.
And Skeptic Tank wasn't your typical comedian interview show, was it?
Not at all. The format was kind of brilliant, actually. Really lent itself to deep, sometimes philosophical talks. You'd pick a subject.
Right.
And the guests, usually other comedians, would discuss it as if they were genuine experts on that topic.
Huh. Okay. The comedians as experts frame.
Yeah, that's the comedic utility, right? It allowed for these deep, meandering, often hilarious discussions, but without the pressure of needing, actual verifiable facts all the time. It was about exploring the idea, the theme, the personal take.
And the range of topics is huge. Showed the power of that long-form medium. Sure, they did comedy stuff, road stories.
Of course.
But the sources confirm the show tackled really serious issues, too. Stuff maybe too sensitive or complex for a stand-up set.
Exactly. Episodes digging into mental health, suicide, rape, prison life. Heavy subject.
The podcast format gave him the space, the time, the context to handle that stuff more comprehensively. Maybe not always perfectly, but with depth.
It let him explore that intellectual, skeptical side, questioning dogma, which links right back to his yeshiva background, his academic side.
Makes sense.
Oh, and a fun little detail. The comedy team, Danish and O'Neill, they were on every 50 episodes, like a recurring tradition.
Nice. He also did collaborative stuff early on, too, right?
Yeah.
Punch Drunk Sports.
Yeah, co-hosted that sports pod with Sam Tripoli and Jason Thibault starting back in 2013. Showed he could play in that collaborative space, too, across different genres.
But he kind of faded from that one.
His appearances got less frequent after he moved to New York full-time in 2015. Makes sense. Harder to coordinate, probably.
Gotcha. And we should also mention his ties to that broader network of, let's say, edgier comics.
Yeah.
Like being voted president of the Legion of Skanks podcast.
Right. Reinforces his place within that specific, often controversial corner of the comedy world.
Okay, so after 12 years of Skeptic Tank, we see the next evolution. A new podcast launched in 2024. You Be Trippin.
This feels like a significant shift for a solo venture. The focus moves from abstract themes or concepts.
Like in Skeptic Tank.
Exactly. To really experiential narratives, grounded in shared global experience. It's a travel podcast.
Okay, what's the angle?
Exploring travel experiences, guests from different backgrounds talking about their journeys, personal stories, the pitfalls, the do's and don'ts of moving around the world.
And he's got the experience for it himself, right?
Definitely. On that first episode with Andrew Santino, it was mentioned, Shaffir himself has traveled to something like 42 countries.
Wow, that's serious mileage. So a new context-heavy direction focused on what connects and divides people across borders. Interesting shift.
Okay, let's pivot to the recorded work itself. Because ultimately, even with all the podcasting, Shaffir is still defined by his stand-up.
Right. The specials, the albums, that's the core output.
Yeah.
And it's extensive, often conceptually ambitious, really leverages his personal history.
His first big release was Revenge for the Holocaust, 2012.
I mean, that title alone tells you everything.
Right. Immediately signals, I'm going there.
Well-
Tackling super sensitive, intensely personal stuff, using his family background as premise material.
And it worked, commercially.
Big time. #1 comedy album on iTunes and Amazon its first week. Confirmed he could mobilize that growing fan base from touring and digital into actual sales.
And then he moved pretty quickly into film specials.
Yep. Passive Aggressive in 2013, produced for Chill.com. Then 2 years later, Paid Regular premiered on Comedy Central in 2015.
And that launch was timed perfectly, wasn't it?
Masterclass in Synergy, Paid Regular, premiered the same week his show, This Is Not Happening, debuted on the same channel.
Dual-pronged attack. Cemented his Comedy Central presence.
And that title, Paid Regular, obviously calls back to that intense 4.5-year grind at the store we talked about, using that earned status as the theme.
But the most unique project, conceptually, was Double Negative. Netflix 2017. The one that caused the split with Comedy Central.
Right. This was a statement about format just as much as content.
How so?
It challenged the standard hour-long special. Double Negative was 2 distinct 45-minute shows based on the idea of a double album, which you rarely see in comedy.
Okay, what were the 2 parts called?
Part 1 was children, Part 2 was adulthood.
What was the idea behind structuring it like that? What was the ambition?
It let him build a real narrative arc across the 2 linked pieces, gave it more thematic depth. Children focused on, innocence, the absurdities of being young, while adulthood went darker. More complex realities, responsibilities, maybe some of the nihilism that comes with maturity. It felt like a conscious effort to make it more than just a string of jokes. A cohesive story.
And his later work keeps mining that personal territory, right? Always bringing his identity forward.
Absolutely. By 2019, he was touring Ari Shaffir, Jew, which is now up on YouTube, like Revenge for the Holocaust. The title just puts it right out there. Grappling with his religious, cultural identity, provocatively, personally.
He also uses international stages a lot, doesn't he? Testing grounds.
Yeah, affirmed his status as a global comic. He premiered both Double Negative and Ari Shaffir, Jew, at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Which is known for being a tough crowd, a real trial by fire for hour-long shows.
Exactly. And we know he's still working. Upcoming special, America's Sweetheart, apparently slated for 2025. So the output continues.
Okay, so this deep dive, looking at a career often marked by provocative material. It wouldn't be complete without addressing that specific public incident, the one that really complicated his standing for a while.
Yeah, we have to cover it.
And it's really essential here that we stick purely to the factual account, the direct consequences detailed in the sources. Maintain an absolutely impartial, objective tone, no taking sides.
Agreed. This is just reporting what the sources say happened. The incident was January 2020, right after the tragic death of Kobe Bryant.
Right. Shaffir posted a video on his Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
and it caused this immediate, massive public reaction. Outrage, really.
Yeah, and the sources give the specific, unedited text of what he said in that video, which we need to include for accuracy.
Okay, what was the quote?
He said, Kobe Bryant died 23 years too late today. He got away with rape because all the Hollywood liberals who attack comedy enjoy rooting for the Lakers more than they dislike rape. Big ups to the hero who forgot to gas up his chopper. I hate the Lakers. What a great day.
Wow. Okay, that's direct.
Extremely direct. And the public outcry was instantaneous, severe. And it led to immediate, real-world consequences in the stand-up world.
What?
A New York comedy club, where Shaffir was scheduled to perform shortly after, they canceled his shows, pulled the plug.
And the sources are clear on why they canceled. It wasn't just the club deciding they didn't like the joke.
No, the sources confirmed the cancellation was due to external pressure. The club reported receiving phone threats related to Shaffir's upcoming appearance.
So direct threats to the venue itself because of the comedian book there. That shows the immediate, tangible blowback digital content can have on physical venues.
It really does. This whole incident kind of functions as this critical case study in modern comedy dynamics, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, the digital platform like Twitter gives you this incredible freedom, incredible reach, bypass censors, say whatever you want.
Right.
But it fundamentally strips away the context, the nuance of a comedy club environment, the delivery, the stage, the darkness, the shared understanding.
Yeah, it's just raw text or a raw video clip circulating online.
Exactly. And that provocative statement, totally divorced from its intended context, just exists as pure data. It invites this unmoderated public reaction, retaliation, and real consequences for the venues trying to host the performer.
It really crystallizes that tension, doesn't it,
Hmm.
between platform freedom and, I guess, contextual responsibility.
Right.
Or maybe just the reality of context collapse online. Hashtag tag Galtro.
Yeah. Context collapse is a good way to put it.
Okay, wow. We have covered a ton of ground here,
Mm.
tracing Ari Shaffir's path all the way from, an Orthodox Jewish community in Maryland.
To the global comedy stage.
Yeah. His career is really this testament to adaptability, isn't it? Spanning deep cultural roots, then viral videos, hitting network TV success, pivoting to Netflix, and maybe most importantly, building this really complex, dynamic, self-owned podcast network.
The synthesis seems pretty clear, right? His career really demonstrates how you almost have to integrate traditional stand-up, that painful apprenticeship grind he did, with self-produced digital content. That integration is what gives guys like him relevance now, and crucially, the creative freedom.
Freedom to tackle the kind of difficult, challenging material he wants to do, the kind of stuff that was the hallmark of Skeptic Tank.
Exactly, that intellectual exploration.
But that freedom, as we just discussed with the Kobe incident, clearly comes with some complex responsibilities, or at least consequences, regarding audience reception context. Or, as he himself was quoted saying, when you lose context, you definitely lose comedy.
Which brings us right to our final thought, something for you, the listener, to kind of chew on.
Okay.
We know Shaffir built his career moving from these really specific context-heavy roots, orthodoxy, NCAA golf failure, the LA grind, into super provocative comedy, often delivered on his own controlled platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So given his own quote about needing context, how might his newest platform, You Be Trippin, which is all about global travel, shared experiences, talking to people from different backgrounds, how might that challenge or change the kind of content and context he deals with moving forward?
Interesting. Will focusing on, like, shared global experiences maybe dilute that specific aggressive voice he's known for?
Or maybe it enriches it, provides a whole new framework for looking at human contradictions just on a global scale instead of a personal one.
A fascinating question for a comedian who's pretty much always defined himself by walking right up to that line and often stepping over it.
Definitely. Food for thought.
That is all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.